Sahsa Martinengo.
Storming down the pit lane.
Weekdays from 12 to 2 p.m. Central African Time. On balls.co.za.
All right, this weekend, of course, it is the German Grand Prix. A little bit later, we will have more motorsport headlines. But as promised, let's go through the 12 teams, what the drivers think about the circuit and what they're expecting for this weekend. Going to start off with the Sauber Formula One team. Of course, their two drivers, Kamui Kobayashi and Sergio Perez. Kobayashi knows the circuit very, very well. Raced there in Formula Renault, Formula 3, GP2, as well as F1. The new updates that they brought to Silverstone, they still don't know how well they're working because they didn't have that much running in testing in the wet conditions in Silverstone 2 weeks ago. I think this car should be pretty decent around the Hockenheim circuit as well. Sergio Perez, the other driver, it's his first race at Hockenheim. He has raced it in terms of Formula One. He has raced there in GP2. He's also won there before as well. He likes the stadium part, driving wise. It's a very, very technical part, of course, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So that's how Sauber are feeling. They say that their car is quick. We just need to get everything right. We have a good chance of a very nice race result. The head of track engineering, Gianpaolo Dallara, has said, haven't raced in 2010. Now, this is something that you've got to bear in mind for all of the teams and all of the drivers, as well as Pirelli. Pirelli weren't here last year at Hockenheim because there was no Hockenheim race last year because the German Grand Prix took place in Nürburgring. Okay, so this is also a first time for Pirelli. We'll give you Pirelli's thoughts on this in a short while as well. So Gianpaolo Dallara from Sauber says no racing in 2010, so this will be the first time for us using the Pirelli tyres and also the DRS. He says the Hockenheim track is a mix of everything, although high-speed corners don't have the same influence on the lap time as they do in Silverstone. Overall, its requirements are closer to that of Valencia. So that's how Sauber are looking at this coming weekend's race in Germany. Our next team that we look at is the Vodafone McLaren Mercedes team. Looking at Jenson Button, who was top of the timesheets earlier on this morning. Sorry, let me tell you where Sauber finished on the timesheets this morning as well. Sergio Perez was in 5th position and Kamui Kobayashi finished down in 11th place this morning. But I must say it was rain interrupted the session, so very difficult to get a true reflection of analysis of the times from this morning. So the final back-to-back before they head into the summer break, Jenson Button, he comes off, well, a couple of disappointing weekends. He says he's always enjoyed Hockenheim. I raced here when it blasted through the forest a long, long time ago. He had a great race here in 2004, finishing 2nd. Performance-wise, he still says he thinks it's a little bit difficult to accurately predict where McLaren stand in the competitive order. Valencia and Silverstone were certainly difficult races. Lewis Hamilton says he was quick to get over the disappointment weekend of Silverstone. He ran with the Olympic flame the following day as well. He very much enjoys the updated track in Hockenheim. It's a place built for racing. The hairpin at the end of the back straight is a classic overtaking spot, and he's really looking forward to the Grand Prix as well. Martin Whitmarsh, the team principal, says Silverstone was a difficult weekend for the team, made better by observing close at hand the depth of loyal support that they had. He says we have many memories of racing in Germany with our friends at Mercedes-Benz this year. While we remain rivals on the track, I'm sure there will be an opportunity to catch up with old friends and enjoy some famous Mercedes-Benz hospitality. Not giving too much away, but they've got a massive update on the McLaren, and looking at the times where they finished 1st and 2nd this morning in free practice, it seems as though whatever they're doing seems to be working right at the moment. Those are the first two teams that we're looking at, Sauber and McLaren. We're going through all 12, give you sort of insight as to what the drivers think about the circuit and what they're expecting. Next team we're looking at is the Williams Formula One team. Pastor Maldonado and Bruno Senna, their two drivers. Just to let you know, in the timesheets from earlier on today, they also have the third driver, a guy that I am pushing really, really hard. His name is Valtteri Bottas. Bottas finished 13th on the timesheets. Pastor Maldonado finished in 9th place this morning. Let's have a look as to what the teams think for this weekend. Pastor Maldonado loves the German Grand Prix, says there's always a great atmosphere. He says the final sector is a little bit challenging, lots of corners coming quickly one after each other. He's disappointed not to have scored points in the last race, but he says the car is showing that it can compete at different circuits. Bruno Senna says it's been 2 years since we've been back here. He thinks the car is very capable of getting a very good result. He says the circuit layout, a mixture of high speed and low speed sections, so car setup should be a little bit challenging. He says the fans create a great atmosphere at the German Grand Prix. And Mark Gillen, the chief operating engineer for Williams, says the weather conditions look better than those which affected Silverstone. There's still a relatively low risk of rain each day. Also, the first year they'll be racing with the Pirellis at Hockenheim. They bring with them their medium and soft tires. So the track characterized by high average corner speeds, high fuel consumption, and high braking severity. Watch out for that this weekend. Next team that we're looking at, the Lotus team, of course, it is Kimi Raikkonen and Romain Grosjean in the team. Kimi Raikkonen says, well, he's never won in Germany, whether the European or German Grand Prix, and he's seen him retire 6 times. So hopefully his luck will change. Romain Grosjean will just hope that his 5-place penalty that he is being given for this race because of a gearbox change won't affect him too much. He will have to have a very good qualifying. We know that when he starts sort of midfield, it does get a little bit icy for Romain Grosjean. Looking at our next team, the Force India team, Nico Hülkenberg. Oh, the Lotus Times. The Lotus Times. Keep forgetting to give the times. Lotus Times. Romain Grosjean was in 10th position. Kimi Raikkonen finished in 15th position from first free practice earlier on today. Nico Hülkenberg asked about his memories of Hockenheim. He had his first race car in 2005. He raced Formula BMW there. He won both of those races on that weekend. He also raced for Formula One for Williams in 2010. It's a track he knows very, very well, although he thinks it is a little bit too short. Paul de Resta, a man who was hoping to get Michael Schumacher's seat, but it's looking more and more difficult for him to get there. He says that he's looking forward to this weekend after the disappointment in Silverstone. Of course, he finished the race in the first couple of corners, unfortunately. He says he knows the track very well from his days in DTM. Looking forward to getting out there the first time in a Formula One car. And Vijay Mallya, the team boss from Force India, said this weekend it's very wide open. He said it's Nico's home race. We have no time to take things easy. We have to take every race very seriously with the same intensity and everything we possibly can to earn more points. Very disappointed with Paul de Resta's retirement in the last Grand Prix, but more disappointed in Nico Hülkenberg, who unfortunately didn't capitalize on scoring points, especially in the last lap, and lost 4 positions. So Force India, McLaren and Lotus, that's how they look for this coming weekend. So far, let's look at the Marussia Formula One team. Timo Glock, of course, this is a home race for him. The German, he loves racing in Hockenheim. He's achieved some very, very good results in the past. Unfortunately, the car just doesn't seem to be quick enough for Timo Glock. But Timo, of course, they were testing some updates on this as well. So hopefully the car will be just a little bit better this coming weekend. The other driver, of course, Charles Pic. He's eager to get back into the car after positive signs. So, let's see what goes on. He's raced at Hockenheim before in 2010. In GP2, he secured a pole position, finished on the podium in 3rd place. So, knows the track very, very well. John Booth, the team principal, looking forward to heading back to the Hockenheim ring. First time since their debut season in Formula One, so there was two seasons ago, and hoping that the updates that they have from Silverstone will work out this coming weekend as well. Next team we look at is HRT Formula One, Pedro Della Rosa and Ryan Karthikeyan. Of course, they're 2 test drivers. Just to give you where they were today, Della Rosa was down in 23rd place, and Danny Kloss, who's the other driver for them, finished 24th. Charles Pic finished ahead of Timo Glock, 21st and 22nd on the time grid. Pedro Della Rosa, incredibly experienced when it comes to Formula One. He says they performed better than expected in Silverstone, and they're hoping that the German weekend is going to be a lot better. Narayan Karthikeyan, new Hockenheim circuit is quite different to the old one, which was much for his liking. And they're aiming to get our main rivals a fight, and then of course that will be the likes of the Marussia team as well. Then we've got a few teams left. Let's get into our next of our teams. That would be, well, no, wait, we'll do Pirelli at the end there. So we'll talk about the Pirelli tyres at the end. Ferrari this weekend, Fernando Alonso and Felipe Massa. Alonso says, I'm in the best shape of my career. Well, it's definitely been proving on the track, but I think in terms of physical fitness, he is 100% in the right place. This weekend, they're hoping that the updates that they had from Silverstone will also work. Early on in free practice one, they did run with the Day Glow paint on the wings just to get some more aerodynamic testing done as well. Felipe Massa says he can do a lot for the team. I think we all know his role. His role is now that he has to back up his teammate Fernando Alonso in terms of the title chase. They've got a really long road to beat the likes of Red Bull. This weekend it is the home Grand Prix for Mercedes-AMG Petronas Michael Schumacher. And he said, people often ask me whether there is such a thing as a home advantage. He says, well, it always gives you a good feeling. This year is the first time our Mercedes Works team has been capable of racing right at the front, and he says we're hoping lots of support from the fans and to reward them with our performance. Nico Rosberg, also home Grand Prix. Of course, he is German by nature. Really looking forward to their second home Grand Prix, I suppose you could call it. And also was at the Photo Forum in Stuttgart earlier on this week as well. Before Formula One, Nico Rosberg often won at this circuit, and he's looking forward to the long straights and the short corners. Ross Brawn says the German Grand Prix will be our second home race in 2 weeks following the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, and the Hockenheim layout should be more suited to the Formula One W03. The high-speed layout of Silverstone was not to their liking, but Germany should be a very, very strong circuit for them. And then finally, Red Bull Racing, of course, looking forward to the German Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel. The strange thing is he's never won a Grand Prix in the month of July. I mean, that's what some people work out stats. Yeah, he's never won a Grand Prix in July, and this all of a sudden makes news. It must be because I'm telling you as well. But he hasn't won the German Grand Prix before, and of course, he would love to. Mark Webber says, obviously, the German Grand Prix switches between Nürburgring and Hockenheim. This year at Hockenheim, we were here in 2010. It was always a great atmosphere. Lots of German drivers. The British support is really, really huge. And the temperatures will be interesting, as it can sometimes be a very, very hot race. So I'm looking forward to it. Mark Webber, of course, riding second in the World Championship at the moment. Those are the 12 teams. That's their thoughts. Just to give you where those other 6 drivers landed up on the timesheets. Alonso was third. Schumacher for Mercedes was in 4th place. Rosberg for Mercedes was in 7th. Massa for Ferrari in 8th. And the 2 Red Bulls right down the timesheets, 12th for Vettel and 20th for Webber. But because it was a very mixed match kind of a session, I don't think you can read too much of it. Let's hope that this afternoon session at 2 o'clock is either dry or wet and not a mixture of both. It's Friday afternoon as we look forward to this weekend's German Grand Prix. Back-to-back races. This week Germany, next week Hungary, and then a 4-week break for all of the Formula One teams. This weekend, first time Pirelli will be using their tyres at the Hockenheim circuit. Of course, last year's German Grand Prix took place at the Nürburgring. They alternate year by year. However, I don't know if we will ever race at the Nürburgring again, unfortunately. Seems like big financial problems there. Pirelli Motorsport Director Paul Hembury has said, of course, it is always an interesting challenge when you come to a new circuit. However, through all of their simulations that they have done, they are very convinced that the tyre compounds that they're supplying to the teams will be the right choices. The question is, how will they degrade during the course of the afternoon? We'll have to wait and see. Now, we've got free practice coming up at 2 o'clock this afternoon, go through until 3:30. TV, just to give you an update, 7:30 this evening, you can watch highlights of free practice 1 and 2. Tomorrow, free practice 3, as well as qualifying, going to be on Supersport 8 only. And you've got an English language option as your language 2. It's only going to be on Supersport 8, Free Practice 3 and qualifying. On Sunday, Supersport 7, HD3 and Maximo is where you can watch the German Grand Prix. Loads of sport taking place. So don't forget, Free Practice 3 and qualifying tomorrow. That's going to be on Supersport 8. I think it's going to be a cracking weekend. I think, in my opinion, Red Bull definitely the team to beat. But I think perhaps the consistency of Fernando Alonso could well see him maybe perhaps on the podium again. But Red Bull, in my opinion, the team to beat.
Gears on bulls.co.za with Sahsa Martinengo.
He's kept himself out of trouble.
Weekdays from 12 to 2 p.m. Central African Time.